Hey everyone, welcome to the next episode of State of the Empire. Anthony Campagato here, again with Ryan. And we have a bunch of stuff to talk about today, but all of it is because there's been so many announcements.
Yeah.
Like we've got the premium bases that they announced. We've got the two new turrets, one for Imperials, one for Rebels that they announced. We've got the... was there an additional announcement as well that was a troop or something, or am I imagining that?
You're imagining it.
Yeah, okay.
There's still like the residue of Commando.
Well, there's so many announcements, right? Like even in our last video, we touched lightly on the idea of Boba Fett and the Scout Troopers, but we were a little crunched for time last time, which is not the case this time around, I believe. So I think we'll probably retouch on some of that stuff. In addition, locally, we've started our first operation, the Fantasy Flight operation. So we'll talk about that a little bit because it has also enabled me through that and a couple other games to actually try out my Snowtroopers. So I can speak a little bit to that as well.
And I think because Veers and Leia have now been out for a while, Rebel players aren't forced to use Luke all the time. So people like me who are really excited to use Leia have actually started using Luke a lot more as people like Luke and Vader have become super dangerous on the table as...
If they don't have the counter.
Yes. Yeah. So if Luke's on the table and the enemy player isn't using a Luke or a Vader, that Luke's almost like,
can do whatever I want.
Look at those two full units of troopers over there. Time to just swing away. Yeah. So I know one of the games we had, you in the escalation or the league thing, you were saying like, oh, I'm actually terrified of Luke because you didn't have a hard counter to that.
Yeah.
And even though at the end the Empire took it, it was still interesting to see how dangerous Luke is when he can kind of run amok for a squishy guy.
And then on top of that, it's not a new announcement, but I think the next release will be the priority supplies, which will, I think... In not like a much needed way, like, oh my god, I don't want to play this game anymore, but I think in a much needed way, like to add some spice and variety, will give us additional cards for the start of game, right? For like objectives. Are there deployment cards as well, or is it just new objectives?
I think deployments. I've seen some pictures of deployments, unless those are like homebrew ones. This game sorely needs... don't get me wrong, it's the early stages. There are plenty of objectives and scenarios to play for everyone to get a feel for it, but this game sorely needs more than the standard deck, so that a player has incentive to be blue player, to use an actual point bid. Because right now, it's like, why would I take a point bid? There are very few reasons to be blue player other than choosing a table side.
So I don't understand what's your point. Like what?
Being able to choose your deck.
Everyone has the same deck, always.
Really?
Yeah, there's no deck building for your...
I think that's...
Okay, one thing to note, though, is that your point bid doesn't make you blue player. It gives you the choice to be blue player. So you can either say... I want the ability to probably get first activation, to pick my side of the table, and to win in the event of ties. Or you can say, no, I want to be red player because I don't want to have to put the first unit out in deployment, and I also want to have, like, maybe the last activation on the turn, which can also be powerful.
Yeah, I don't know. I still like the way Armada did a lot. I don't play X-Wing, so I don't know how X-Wing did it, but the idea of you build a list and you choose your objectives to it, maybe not even necessarily the conditions, but the objectives, because then you can bring a... Like, there's the point of your point bid is saying, I am super confident that my list is optimized for these objectives. And I'm kind of putting the enemy on the back of their heels at disadvantage, and then it's balanced out because I'm also at a point to say.
But I also think that's the differential in the games, though, right? Like Armada is still, out of all of the miniature Star Wars games, at least in the Fantasy Flight line of things, it is still the heaviest, like, chess game, where it's a long, thought-out, future-thinking process. And it's not that you're not being strategic in a game like X-Wing or Legion, but because it is that way, you can say part of my whole strategy is trying to build to certain types of objectives, and thus I'm bringing a deck that complements that. Generally, in Legion, you need to be a little bit more flying by the seat of your pants to say, I know all of the objectives that are available. I don't know which one we'll end up playing, but I have to try and take a list that is strategic in different kinds of ways. Otherwise, you can just wind up with like, well, I brought my dual ATSTs always, and I just never bother taking objectives that they can't score, and then I get a massive point bid just so I can always play what I want to play.
I mean, dual Star Destroyers, kind of, or the Star Destroyer Avenger.
Oh yeah. Well, even that
like
got hit
50.
though, right? With the last set of different game, but
either way. No, I know what you mean. Generally in Armada, you know what you're doing before you even set up. You're like, I know where I'm going to be turn 5.
That's right. Yeah. So. Whereas Legion, I mean, especially like in a game like Armada, your ships can take a relatively heavy amount of damage, and that heavy amount of damage doesn't start pouring in until turn 2 or 3.
Mm-hmm.
In Legion, you can have a unit wiped out on turn 1.
Oh yeah, it's not a fun time.
Yeah, like on turn 1, if you're not the first person to activate, you have something to shoot.
Yeah.
You do, because like range 3, which is the common range for your average blaster, really gets you like 3/4 of the table.
Yeah.
Like you basically can't hit something in the deployment zone, and maybe that's about it. Like you have a little flexibility there.
People like Leia and Veers can bombard you turn 1. The ATSTs can bombard you turn 1. So there's a lot of artillery. ATRTs with the range 4 can shoot you turn 1 easily. DLTs, rockets.
ATRTs have range 4? The laser cannon. Yeah, and ATSTs just have range 4.
Yeah. And now turrets for Rebels
also have
especially.
Range 4.
Super neat, especially they can't move.
Yeah.
Anyways, but yeah, I think the term I hear for Legion is chaos mitigation.
How do you mean?
So you don't know what units are going to activate all the time because it's random.
Right.
But the dice, the way that attacking and defending works is, like you said, units can be wiped out super quickly if you're not careful.
Yeah.
So, and with suppression tokens and running off the table and all this morale stuff, I've heard the terminology chaos mitigation. Like everything you're doing is you're executing your plan and you're trying to. The rules allow you to mitigate randomness to a degree.
Yeah.
So every order is random, but your command cards can mitigate that by kind of choosing the priority of who gets to activate. Or with cover, you can mitigate the randomness of dice. So
okay, yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I don't think there's a whole lot to say on the topic of priority supplies, other than I think it'll be nice for 2 reasons. One, giving you more of that flexibility of what we wind up playing and what you have to account for when you're building your list, but also the fact that it'll have a couple miniatures, I believe, included that can that can be your objective markers, and this is, I mean, relatively minor, but one of the reasons I like that is that because there are a few missions where it says that you have to be in base contact with a objective marker because it represents something that your guys can't move on top of. And oftentimes people will like, okay, my guy's right on top of this objective now. It's like, well, you can't do that, right? And yeah, I don't know. Again, it's relatively minor, but it'll be nice to have those. And I know some people already have that. Like there's some of the token guys that, they have those really neat. It looks like a hologram. Have you seen those? Yeah, they look really nice. I'm debating getting a set of those.
And you could make your own. It's always nice when a game supplies you with very thematic and well-made
components. Yeah. And on that note, premium bases. What are your thoughts on that? You've seen them?
Ish.
Yeah.
So I might not be familiar with Legion's premium bases necessarily, but as a veteran war gamer, usually game systems like 40K Fantasy release premium bases. I think premium bases are awesome to a degree. As a hobbyist, I don't really engage in premium bases because I make my own bases. I decorate it myself. Premium bases, like my issue with Legion minis to begin with, which is socket into one pose kind of thing, is I like to kind of do my thing. I like to be a special snowflake, and premium bases don't really allow you to be as special as a snowflake. So I'm the type of player who, to make cobblestone, will get green stuff and get those special rollers to like roll the cobblestone on instead of buying cobblestone. So I think they're awesome. I think we'll see a lot of players use them, and I think they're really good for the more casual hobbyist who wants cool looking bases but can't really make them, and it'll be really cool for the like centerpiece hobbyists who want the things that are very distinctly Star Wars.
And I think it depends on your theme as well, because for those of you who haven't seen them, they come in a variety of sizes, or at the very least they come in. I think you can get them in all sizes. You either buy a pack that is just troop sized, which works for all your commanders and all your troops, and then you have a pack that is both the kind of medium and large vehicle bases, I believe. But more importantly, what they look like is essentially they are designed. They don't have any little things on them. They don't have like props. But what they do have is a design on the top that makes it look like futuristic floor paneling. So what that's really good for is if you wanted to, let's say, theme your Rebel or Imperial army as though they were fighting in a Starship hangar bay or on the Death Star or in a secret Imperial installation or something like that. These work super great for that. And that was honestly something that I considered doing and just thought, I don't have the creative skill to create a base like that. It would have been nice if these existed right at release, because if I'm being completely honest with you, I've done the crate theme on all of my guys so far. Actually, you can see some of my Snowtroopers right behind me there. Their bases aren't quite done yet. But I've done the crate theme, and I really like the crate theme, and I'm not going to be changing the crate theme. And I'm not going to have here are my 4 units of Stormtroopers that are all crate themed. And then I did, another 2 or 3 units of Stormtroopers with these new bases, because they're all going to be the same.
Here's the thing, though, is because Legion's only a 2-faction game,
True.
And we're the type of people who have I've got 4 armies in my fantasy.
That's very,
game.
Very true as well. You know what?
So
that's a great point.
When you do a Rebel army, you're likely to get premium base, or when I do an Imperial army at some point, I'm likely to get the.
Yep, and I could see myself eventually maybe doing a Rebel army, and then I think I would use those premium bases and just say, my Rebels are infiltrating an Imperial base or whatever, and I think that's a great theme. I like it. So I do like these bases. I think they're a little bit late to the party. Some people are going to look at me cockeyed because, like you said, the game's 3 months old?
But still, everyone is hungry for Legion, and everyone's already painted up their stuff.
But I just mean, the game's only 3-4 months old. For new players who pop in, which there's lots and lots of time for new players to get in, is they might say, oh, this makes it, again, even more accessible because I'm looking at all the cool things people do with their bases. I don't feel confident in my ability to do that, but I can just buy these and they'll look sweet.
Here's the thing, though, is I have never seen a company do premium bases first because they want to do their minis first. They want people to play the game. They want to see if their game actually sells and people actually like it.
Yeah.
Then they'll do those kind of side products.
And it is a bit weird that for a game that is very young and needs a lot more units for the sake of customization and meta and all that kind of thing, that they would go, here's your base set, unit leader and unit leader and unit, and then we're going to take a little break and we're going to put out bases, barricades, and objective markers for 2 months or a month or something like that, whatever, because they're on the monthly release schedule, and then we'll get back to giving you new units and stuff again.
You can't give out all the new units too quickly because
you
are still trying to get used to the game.
But you could continue just the monthly release slot and not have these for example, barricades. And priority supplies, I believe, constitute the June releases. And then the next thing we'll see is Haunting Commandos in July. Okay. So it's why slow that down like that? You could release them alongside and just say, so here's your usual, new units that you can try out. And also for those players like perhaps the Imperials who aren't getting something at the same time as the Rebels, they can also have fun with these other new releases. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's just my opinion, but
tell me more about how awful it is to not get something while the other faction.
Yeah, but that's always back and forth though. I didn't get anything when Leia and Fleet Troopers came out.
Exactly, but you already had stuff to play with.
I know, but I don't complain as much as you. But anyway, I think that's really, I don't know. Do you have anything else to add on the idea of priority supplies and that kind of thing?
I'll be honest, that stuff doesn't really interest me as much.
Sure.
Because it's stuff that I'm not really going to engage in as much in terms of the bases and the minis for priority supplies and stuff.
Yeah.
I haven't seen what the new objectives are, any of the new stuff like that. I don't really have comments on them.
Yeah.
I'm more the player, whereas I'm not building my list to do all the objectives. I'm building my list to mitigate what my opponent brings to the table. And whatever the objective is, I handle it from there. So I have a couple key units that their jobs are to complete objectives, and then units to stop enemies from completing objectives.
Sure.
And I wait until I see what the objective is because I can't choose what my objectives are.
This is actually be a nice segue then into the operation that we're doing, because it's slightly different in that we know what we're doing, which is not the usual, right? So I don't know if some of you probably have also ran this or are running this or are participating in it, because the the first 2 monthly operations came out last month. Now we're a little bit behind the ball due to various other community events and players being busy with other things. But essentially, the first operation that we're doing, and I'm sure it's your choice which one you want to do first, but it's basically an escalation league. So essentially, there's a few different ways you can run it, but for the most part, what we're doing is the whole event is 4 games. We're doing games weekly. Your matchups are kind of Swiss style, so first round is random, and then after that, try and match winners with winners, and people who didn't win their first matches against others who didn't win their first matches, and go back and forth that way. And the idea is that everyone is always playing all 4 of these games with clear conditions, key positions, and what am I missing? Objective condition, and deployment is regular deployment lines. So it's very straightforward. It's very obviously meant for people who are building their lists or whatever. But they give you some cool swag essentially to give out for people who are participating. Full art upgrade cards for rebels and extra rebel trooper, extra stormtrooper.
Art's always nice.
Yeah, the art is nice. It also gives high quality metal, gold, and silver command coins for the commanders for each faction. So the core prizes are the cards, and the elite prizes are the coins. And the part that I like most about it are 2 things. One, your first game's 350, your second game's 500, and you keep going up until you get to your game 4, which is a full 800-point game. But the thing is your 350 points that you play must carry over to your 500 points.
Well,
you can screw around with you can screw around with your upgrade cards and swap those around. Which is actually very interesting because you could take a squad of 6 down to a squad of 4 and save a bunch of points.
I was tempted to, not going to lie, because I'm running Luke, which means my points are a little squeezed, not because I don't have Leia, but because I figured, hey, let's try Luke out in the predominantly Veers and Leia setting, which has proven to be a good choice in my opinion. But I thought about dropping all the upgrades on stuff just so I could fit in an airspeeder at 500 points.
At 500, yeah.
Which is pretty dangerous in a small game.
Yeah, and that's interesting because, and if Joe's watching this, pay attention. As he said, I tooled up my list at 500 points once I realized that Imperials couldn't fit an ATST. Well, the interesting thing is that we can if we just drop our squads down to 4.
Yeah.
And then what could you do against an ATST of 500?
Could you do Veers 2, 4, or your 3 units of 4 and an ATST?
Yes.
There you go. Do that.
Could do that.
Lock that in.
But yeah, so you can screw around with your upgrade cards, but whatever units you choose must carry over. And within your first 2 games, you're only allowed 1 commander. And within your first 1 game, you can't take heavies. And then it scales accordingly. And the first 2 matches are on 3x3s rather than 6x3s. So it gives you some different stuff that is both presents its own set of challenges than what you're used to playing, but also allows people to get into the game slowly.
Not gonna lie, the limit to 1 commander has been a real issue with me because I've been really digging taking the twins.
Yeah.
They work super well together.
Well, just a couple weeks and you can do it.
I know, I'm excited.
But yeah, so we started running that. So far, 3 of the 4 round 1 games have been played. You and I played first round. Our friend Joe that I had mentioned played against his opponent. Joe won his game. And Josh and Ash have played, which Ash won. And then I believe Rob and Jamie are playing tomorrow morning.
Yes.
And then we will all kind of congregate on the same day to do round 2 as well. Yeah.
Okay.
Tomorrow at 1, yeah. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Ryan presented a really interesting strategic conundrum for me in round 1 because there was Luke. So when you have one guy running around with a lightsaber and you don't have one running around with a lightsaber, it's a very testy kind of and of course, I've come to refer to Veers as the closer because he has become, in my mind, renowned for finishing things off. Whether it be an ATST that has a couple hit points left and he does surge to crit and he does roll 3 dice and he does have
3 rerolls.
Yeah, like it's nice. So they are white dice, but it's like you get lucky on some of these rolls.
Just so you know, with Veers, he can take an aim action, then he can give the aim.
But then he can't shoot.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
I was going to say, 2 rerolls?
Yeah, no, not quite. But yeah, and so even in this game, I think Luke chopped his way through 2 units of troopers.
2 full units by himself.
But but even that did such a good job of highlighting how this game is different from games like 40K or Age of Sigmar or whatever, where your hero units, yes, they hit like a truck, and yes, they have a lot of courage and health.
He got whittled down.
They're just people, though.
Mm-hmm.
And he easily made easy work of those 2 units of troopers that he got engaged with, but he didn't just slice through them all in one turn.
No.
Because he's rolling 6 dice, he has Pierce 2, he's up against 6 troopers, so even if just 3 guys survive, they're still rolling black dice against him, and that's still, like you were saying earlier...
Hits, it hurts.
Yeah, with surge hits, that's right.
So what ended up happening is Luke jumped in, chopped half a unit up, the unit hit back, next turn, he finished off the unit, and then moved into range of the second unit into melee and Anthony wondered, like, why would you do that? Because I can punch you harder than I can shoot you. My response was, Luke can take it better than a squad of rebels out in the open.
Right.
And the alternative was letting those troopers shoot my...
And they did. They pistol whipped the shit out of that blonde
kid. And then Luke, son of Skywalker, and erased the unit. And sure.
And at that point, he had 2 health left.
2 health left
out of his 6.
Veers,
and then...
And I rolled all...
Veers casually just turned around and said, boop, boop, and there he went.
To be fair, had Veers not killed him then and there, if Luke had just 1 hit point left, I'm sure Luke could have killed or almost killed Veers the very next turn. It turned out to be a pretty close game, and I think highlighted the fact that you can have a troop-focused army and a kind of hero-focused army. Where the troops there to support the hero instead of the hero there to support the troops. Well, and they're pretty balanced.
And Joe and Dennis were playing their games right beside us, and very different because Joe was running Leia and like 2 units of fleet troopers and rebels and
rebel troopers,
and Dennis was running Luke and fleet troopers and like almost probably something akin to your list, right?
The same.
And Luke lost that. I mean, mind you, I think that was Dennis's like first or second game.
It was his first game. Luke lost that one, but Luke again ran up, and everything had to focus on.
That's right.
So
yeah,
it
takes a lot of pressure off the rest of your guys. So it'll be interesting going forward, absolutely. But I'm having a lot of fun with it, and I think that this is really going to get people into a place where they say, yeah, I enjoy the structure of the play. I enjoy the unique circumstances that the play brings, and I can't wait for next month when it will be narratively based, and there's this battle affects that battle, not just lists are locked in.
I'm glad we waited. I think everyone started before us because we waited until Leia was out and people had a chance to use it.
Yeah.
Because I think it would have been a severely imbalanced league if it was Vader or Veers versus Luke.
Yeah, and the other thing is too is we had it just for fun game after our first game. You're like, just try Vader, and I didn't want to take Vader in my list because with 350 points and he's 200 naked, and it's it's a lot. So I wound up taking, what did my list wind up being? I think it was 2 units of 5 Snowtroopers with no heavy weapons, and then Vader with a couple force powers, and it didn't go nearly as well.
But it's still terrifying.
Yeah,
everything is armored and slow and purposeful, moving them.
It would have done better against if he got paired up against Leia. Because he's like, oh, a sister.
That would not go so well.
Yeah, no, that would have been
rough. On the other hand, can hold more than his own against Vader.
Yeah.
Especially when Vader's been, peppered a little bit.
That's right.
But it's been going well so far, and I think with the release of Leia and the Fleet Troopers, we've seen a lot of really interesting counterplay by the Rebels in response to Veers and the Snowtroopers.
Yep.
I know Joe is a huge advocate of Leia and Fleet Troopers so far.
He loves them.
He's had more experience with her and the Fleet Troopers than I have. My experience has been mostly Luke and Leia.
Yeah.
I don't like running Leia by herself. She's good at pushing your troops forward, but I find she just doesn't have the same kind of oomph as Luke has.
Right.
And it frees up Luke, because the idea of Luke is you want to use his lightsaber, but then he gets in the thick of it and dies halfway through the game, and you lose all your command cards, you lose your commander.
Yeah,
Leia, at least, it's bro, I got you, go forward, do your thing.
Yeah, supports the troops a lot
more. So he just kind of ballistic missiles forward and does his objective.
Yeah, totally. So, and I wanted to mention too, the second thing that I really liked about this league is the idea of operational objectives and major objectives, where you can score a major objective if over the course of the entire operation you accrue a total of 7 objectives over your games, which is cool. But even cooler than that is the operational objectives, which are at the start of every game you secretly select one of your units, and if at the end of the game your opponent has destroyed that unit, then they will score an operational objective point. And of course, it works both ways. And so that was really interesting. And I think in our game, you had chosen Luke, like obviously, and I chose Veers, obviously. And so obviously Veers survived and Luke didn't, so that happened. But yeah, there's a battle report that I'll be posting relatively soon. Where I played against Joe, just like a practice game for our next round of 500 points, and I got creamed. The rolls, the force was not with me on that one. Even Veers, I think, has died once prior to that game ever that I played, and Joe just kind of casually killed him in that one. He hit him with orbital bombardment. That's if there's one thing that I have to get better as a player, is that when I see Leia across the table, I have to learn to deploy more out of her line of sight.
That's how Rebels feel against Veers. It's 4 red dice.
Yeah, and I almost don't know what's worth. 4 red dice will really neuter one unit, but I honestly think it is worse having multiple of your units be not only brought to below how you wanted them to start, but to have all that suppression spread around is awful.
I thought it would be awesome. I'm Leia's ability is amazing. Don't get me wrong, it's good. But there are occasional be because here's the thing: if you use an aim token with Veers, you roll 4, you can reroll 3.
Yeah.
With Leia, you have your shots spread out, so she's likely not going to be rerolling.
Right.
And I've had times where it's 1 hit, no hits, 2 hits, and it's not Pierce.
No.
And it's not impact. So they still get their saves.
But that sharpshooter 2s really helps a lot.
Which balances out because it's super accurate, meaning they have to roll armor.
Yeah.
They have to roll armor. They will be suppressed. They will likely lose one person or nobody, but they'll be suppressed right off the bat. So it gives the Rebels a chance to kind of rush for it. That's been my experience as the Leia user.
Yeah, it's a pain. Is what I was saying. So.
Well, I don't know. It's a little bit better than being my airspeeder's dead turn 1 because it got nuked by orbital bombardment and then shot with a rocket launcher. Or Luke dies turn 1 because everything.
Didn't you win that game?
Yeah, I still take. Luke died turn 1. Rebels tabled Empire anyways because some rebel took over. And it was him and a unit of the Z.
Brakbar and Dodonna!
Yeah, so it was a full unit of Rebels with a Z6, and 2 units of speeder bikes had come up, and they were a little whittled down. And I'm split fire. Troops with the rifle shoot at one, wipe it out. Z6 shoots at the other one, wipes it out. And I was
efficient.
Killed 180 points in one shot.
That's right.
Okay.
So I think at this point, let's get to what most people want to hear us talk about, which is the new announcements of those turrets. So the what's the Rebel one called? It's a numbered unit. It's a radar, 1 point something.
It's a radar dish that shoots lasers.
Yeah, it's the Hoth. It's one of the Hoth guns. It's the smaller of the 2 Hoth guns.
The other one.
No, well that's terrain.
Yeah.
Gale Force 9 is putting out some really nice Star Wars terrain. Sci-fi terrain.
Sci-fi. It would be nice to see some of those with the tops popped up and smoking as your.
Yeah, you can take it as a fortification. It would just count as a heavy or something and be a big turret, right? I don't know. But and it's funny because a lot of times you go, we'll never see something like that because it's weird that in a skirmish game you have something that can't move.
I thought we'd have
this turret doesn't move.
I was almost certain we'd get it just because in my mind I was thinking, what heavy artillery does the Rebel have access to that helps it put it on the same level as Empire in terms of firepower? And honestly, a defensive turret is really the only thing because that thing hits like a monster.
Yeah. So let's go over. I'll tell you a little bit about what they have in common and a little bit what they have in different. Ryan can give you his interpretation on the Rebel one. I'll give you my interpretation of the Imperial one, and then maybe we'll do a little crossfire. So basically, what they have in common is that both of them have range 4. Both of them have 4 health. Both of them have 2 courage. Both of them... well, that's pretty much the... both of them can take the same upgrades.
The turret has 6 health. Pretty sure there's more.
Really?
Yep. It has less armor though.
What do you mean armor? What was it? White defense die.
White surge defense. Every
other Rebel thing.
Luke continues to be the only
with
red dice defense until Wookiees.
So so then the Rebel one has 6 health, I suppose, and 2. But the Snowtrooper E-Web Blaster does have 4 and 2. And the other thing that's similar is that they can take the same upgrade slots. They get a generator slot and they get a comm slot,
which has new cards.
That's right, and they have access to the same cards, obviously, just like anything else. So one upgrade that they can take is a barrage generator, which allows them to add 2 white dice to their attack pool and gain the suppressive keyword, which is really cool. And then the other one that they have is the overcharge generator, which allows you to add 1 black dice and impact 1,
which is awesome.
Yeah,
especially for the turret.
So they both have access. The other new card they have access to is direct from HQ, which I honestly think has more implications for things like ATSTs and airspeeders than it does for anything else. But basically it says, when the issue order phase come up, issue an order to yourself, which is huge.
Which I think gets around the card. So if you place a card and it says, units issued orders, I don't know if it counts the things.
That's a great question. I never thought about that.
Because the cards, I think, are issued from this card. So orders issued from this card.
And it may say, we'll have to take a closer look at that, because I'm almost wondering if some of them have the wording of when an unit is issued an order this turn. Yeah. In which case, that direct from HQ becomes even more powerful.
No, if it was when issued an order this turn, every time you flip a token, that unit is issued an order.
No, because that unit is activated. When you issue orders, that's when you're assigning tokens.
You issue an order and then immediately activate it when you draw randomly.
I don't think so. I think that if you look at the actual phases of the game, there is the order phase, and then there's the activation phase. And when you activate a unit, you're drawing from the stack, and then you activate it, right? Whereas, because I don't think any of the actual cards say when a unit is issued an order with this card.
No, they say when issued an order, but they limit the things that can be issued orders.
Yeah.
So it'll be neat to see what.
Yeah, we'll have to do a little investigation on that one.
If that allows you to utilize the card for that turn, that's going to be huge.
Yeah,
especially with someone like Veers, who can take multiple vehicles.
Yes.
And then have his thing that says when vehicles are issued orders.
Do you know how much of a headache that gets rid of for me? Because, Veers wants to hand out those spotter tokens, but you also, then that means Veers has to go before your ATSTs, and sometimes you want your ATSTs to go first or whatever, but then are you going to be able to pull them? What card did you play? Blah, 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 blah. Now you can say, well, with a standing orders, I can give Veers his order to make sure that I can activate him when I want. Then both my ATSTs order themselves, and then all that's left in the pile is troops. I essentially can have whatever I want to go whenever I want it to go.
Standing order.
If you don't need the initiative, right?
But becomes super deadly.
It does, yes.
Ambush with direct from HQ means you can really.
Yeah,
you can choose. Anyways, that card, it is tappable though. Like you have to refresh it to use it,
and
which
so
I think balances it out.
So then let's talk about, because now you're making me want to get into what my ideas are with the eWeb, but let's talk about how they're different. So what does the Rebel one get for dice and when it attacks?
4 black dice, surge hit, range 4, impact 2.
Okay, and does that and it can't move?
Can't move.
And does it have one other keyword?
Full pivot.
Full pivot, right?
And they both have full pivot. Or Sentinel or whatever it is, which is they can not Overwatch, whatever the term is.
Yeah,
they can stand by range 3, which is super cool.
Yeah, it's enormous, because normally things outgun Overwatch. That's the biggest problem with Overwatch. Yeah, sorry.
Keyword.
You did this to me. I've never called it Overwatch before until right now. You're the worst.
Too much XCOM.
Yeah, I guess so. But yes, both of them have full pivot, which means when they perform a pivot action, they can go all 360. And then both of them do have Sentinel, which says, yes, when you do stand by, you can fire up to range 3, which stops people from just saying, haha, I have longer range than you, I've shot you, you took suppression, now you lose your Overwatch.
They are troopers.
That's correct. And they come on like speeder bike size bases, I believe.
Not the Rebel one. I'm pretty sure.
No, is it on a large base?
Pretty sure it's a big base, or
it doesn't look that big with the trooper standing beside it.
It might be ATRT size.
I think that it is,
which is bigger than the.
That's right. There's small, medium, and large vehicles, right? Yeah, I think that they both come on medium vehicle bases.
Yours might be small.
No.
Then they both might be medium.
Yeah.
I would laugh if the turret was on a large because it would limit
that'd be so big.
Part of me as a Rebel player is like, I'm just bringing 3 turrets. They're range 4.
Right.
Or 3 turrets. Why not? There's 70 points. They're only 70 points.
So, and then here's how the Imperial ones differ, is that the Imperial one is 1 dice shy of ATST firepower. So the ATST gets 2 red, 2 black, 2 white. This gets 2 white, 2 black, 1 red. The other thing that is unique is that the E-Web blaster, because it's essentially a huge blaster on a tripod operated by 2 guys, much like you see it in The Empire Strikes Back when they're attacking the Millennium Falcon as it's leaving Echo Base, this thing can be just picked up and moved by the guys. So it actually can move. It can only move 1, much like every other Snowtrooper unit.
It can move and shoot?
No, because it is. It has the same rule as the HH-12 rocket launcher, cumbersome, I believe.
Okay.
Where it states that if you do a move, then you cannot shoot the weapon. But in addition to that, it has another move restriction called plotting,
which can only do 1 move action.
Yes, that's correct.
It can move and dodge.
Yeah, it can't move. Making it that extra little bit of gumption that Snowtroopers have. You can only move 1, but it is a big deal that they actually can move because that means you're not restricted to a particular fire lane. It means that it is capable of capturing objective tokens because it is classified as a trooper unit. So I do think that that's pretty cool.
What else is? Because it's a trooper unit, the scenario or the condition that lets you airdrop guys.
Yep.
Put trooper units in
That's
reserve.
Right. You can just put your turrets in reserve and
drop the E-Web. Next turn, aim and shoot. and the turret as well. The big turret's a trooper unit.
Yeah, I guess so. It just won't be able to move ever, so you better really like where you put it.
So you put it on a building top.
Yeah.
You secure the location.
I think that,
and then drop it on.
Yeah, that's true. I think
cool.
that might be slightly less attractive with the Rebel option, just because one of the things that this really helps Rebels out with is that heavy range for firepower. Mm-hmm. And if you take this, I think you refer to it as an 80-point unit. It's a 70-point unit, but you're going to put at least 1 10-point upgrade on it.
And there's 1 10-point upgrade I'm going to take.
Yeah, so let's call it an 80-point unit.
Black dice.
Additional. Yeah, you like the overcharge.
So it's 5 black dice surge hit, impact 3. It'll shred vehicles like there's no tomorrow.
Which is his point.
Meaning I can take fewer anti-vehicle stuff on my other things. So ATRTs with flamethrowers, which are awesome.
With something like I'm forgetting the condition you were just talking about, rapid redeployment. Is that those units aren't doing anything until the halfway point of the game. Because they get added on turn 2, and then they can activate into turn 3 or something like that.
The turret can only shoot 4, so it's likely not going to shoot turn 1. It might get to shoot turn 1.
Why would it shoot turn 1?
So you've got...
If you deploy your turret at max range, like at range 1, range 4 will let you hit anything you want. Really? As long as it's, not every diagonal because it'll go out further. Okay. But right across the table, you can, believe me, as an ATST player.
Hey, Rebels don't really get any range 4 stuff. This will be like...
Is this the first?
No, the ATRT has a range 2 to 4.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. 2 to 4. I forget about that one.
It's been a mobile turret, but now Rebels don't need to be like, flamethrower or laser cannon. Now it's flamethrower or laser cannon if I want a mobile one. But you can take a turret and the laser cannon and have a good mobile...
And what I really like about the Imperial one is it's a 55 points, which is like dirt cheap for Imperial gear. Yep. You're getting almost the same firepower as an ATST. You're getting that sweet range. You're getting the option for a decent suppression weapon, like the mortar turret is just 3 white dice or whatever.
And you can add the upgrade that gives it 2 additional white dice and suppress.
That's what I mean.
So it becomes 4 white dice.
4 white dice, 2 black or red, and suppressing.
Surge crit. by the way.
Yeah, which is huge, which is really good.
Which means with those 2 white dice, it can shred vehicles.
So what I like about that is that first off, I never take bikes. I hate bikes. This is finally a support unit that I'll actually want to take. It also, I can very easily see me saying, okay, well now I'm going to change my list so that instead of taking 2 ATSTs, I'm going to take 1 ATST and 3 E-Web blasters. And then what I'm going to do is create a gun line and put Veers by it. And then what Veers is going to do is hand out free aim tokens and allow this thing to just destroy whatever it really wants to by focusing fire. If you give all of them barrage generators, that means they're pumping out 6 suppression in a turn.
Yep.
And with Veers, I can do that twice in a row because Imperial Discipline will just say all 3 of those guys automatically ready all their cards. Fire again with suppressive barrage things. So that's 12 suppression tokens in 2 turns from 3 units. That's insane.
The other thing to consider too is with that range 3 standby, it means that you can have units grabbing objectives, and these turrets can help hold down those objectives from afar. So the units can kind of hunker down and take their dodge tokens, work on staying alive and holding the objective, and the turrets can really suppress the enemy troops and keep them from moving up. Because if you're in standby and an enemy trooper moves into that range and gets shot at, their turn's done. They don't get their second action because then they're suppressed and they lose an action.
Yeah, no, it's they add such a whole new element to the game, a whole new dynamic. It really is going to, I think it'll actually make moving from cover to cover and using standby actually more likely because those turrets are just going to be fields of death.
So you will have to move cover to cover because if you're in cover and there's cover, you're here with cover and there's cover here, and normally it's a move out in the open, move into cover. You end your turn in cover. But with such a long range standby, you move out in the open, you end in standby, you get shot at out of cover, then you make it to your turn's done and you're caught out in the open, and then the enemy can just shoot you while you're sitting down. You need to move shorter distances cover to cover so you can end your turn in cover when that standby hits you.
But now, I guess because they're on vehicle bases, they do have firing arcs.
They do.
Yeah, so I mean that's going to be the whole thing is kind of maneuvering their firing arcs.
When you're at long range, though, like it's tight.
Sure.
And then the further,
and then the more of an arc they have for sure.
So, and with that 360 pivot on both of them, it makes a.
And you bring up a good point of like I'd said earlier in the video as well that I had finally had an opportunity to play around with Snowtroopers a lot more, and that is my favorite thing about them is the idea that they get the free attack after moving means that I can be in cover, move out of cover. Get a shot that I want to get, and then move back into cover. That's awesome. The other thing that's great is to say I'm going to move from the cover that I'm from the open rather into cover, and then out of cover and back into cover somewhere else. Like they're very mobile. They're very urban fighter.
They're mobile for having the shortest move distance.
That's right, which I think is a really interesting piece about them. Right, they take some getting used to, for sure. And they can, they're not broken, like they can easily be neutered kind of thing. But for me, it's about taking a unit of 6 with a flamethrower and impact grenades, mean that they can deal with anything they need to deal with, and when they get to range 1, they're insanely deadly.
Because
even if it's just a flamethrower guy left, like him and the captain, you put him up against a unit of 5, that's 6 black dice they're still throwing between the 2 of them.
Don't underestimate the flamethrower. It's pretty good.
Yeah, especially in endgame, you're not afraid to throw them out there and be like, just kill that unit. But no cover, impact.
With things like the commandos and the turrets and Han and Boba, I think this game has a very bright future.
Yes.
And it's just looking better and better and better, and I'm excited to see what they put out next. Part of me is hoping for like Wookiees, Death Troopers, tanks.
Well, see, here's my theory, okay, is we've got, if we look at what a release schedule theoretically looks like right now, we've got June for barricades and supplies. We've got July for Han and, Han and Commandos. We've got August for Boba and Scout Troopers. We've got September for turrets, but you'll notice that this is the first time we've had an announcement where Imperial and Rebel was announced at the same time, and it wasn't a commander unit combo. I think that September we'll see both these turrets released at once.
Good.
And I think that October we will see finally the third Imperial commander and their unit. And I think that we're likely to either see, more likely to see Krennic and Death Troopers, and maybe even put that Halloween October spin on the Death Troopers.
Yeah.
Or alternatively, Palpatine and Crimson Guard. Although that's less likely because he just seems like such a high-tier person that he might be later.
The Imperial don't need another expensive hero unit.
Yeah, they need that mid-range.
They need an expensive trooper unit, if that makes sense. They need more heavily weighted units than commanders. Right now, it's been, with Vader and Boba, you're looking at 200 points, then 100.
Yeah, because what Rebels currently have a trooper, and a spec ops.
The same.
And that's it, right? In terms of what's currently out and what's been announced?
What's out is the
Fleet Troopers and Rebels.
Fleet Troopers, Rebel Troopers, ATRT.
No, but infantry-wise.
Oh,
they have those two, and they have announced the commandos, which are spec ops, right?
And then the turret, which is a trooper.
Yeah, and that's a support. But I'm just curious about
the trooper slot.
I'm just curious about core and spec ops. So you got those three.
Yeah.
And Imperials have Snowtroopers, Stormtroopers, and Scout Troopers announced. So same thing. I'll be interested to see then if they do Krennic and Death Troopers are going to be spec ops.
Yes.
And then that begs the question then, what would the second Rebel spec ops unit be?
Wookiees.
Yeah, I know you want your Wookiees.
Or it'd be neat, and I've said this before.
Saw Gerrera and Rebel Partisans.
That would be interesting, but I really think something cool and a neat opportunity for them is a character unit. So a character unit.
So, yeah.
So let me go on about this.
Okay.
So think of how the operative?
Yeah.
The Imperial operative is Boba Fett. People have been like, well, what's an operative for Rebels? People have said Chewie, he'd be an operative. Lando would be an operative.
Yeah.
One thing I kind of threw out there jokingly at first is Rogue Squadron, like the people from Rogue One, or Rogue One from Rogue One. And so it's like, they can't do that. I was like, thinking about it, they're not like super characters like our main cast of heroes. Like they all, spoiler alert, kind of
die,
meet their fate. They're not in the original trilogy. So what would be interesting is because things like speeder bikes are 3 hit points, but it's still a unit. So what if you had like the cast of 6 people? How many are there? There's Jin, Cassian, K2,
Bodhi, the Imperial pilot,
and then the 2 other guys.
Yeah.
Let's take the pilot out. 'Cause he doesn't do much other than fly. It's true.
Sure.
So you've got 6 people, or you could do less or whatever, and you give them like 2 hit points.
Did you have Cassian?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, of course.
Right.
The first one I said. You give them each 2 hit points apiece, and they're all a special. They all have like 1 special keyword each, and as they perish, the unit loses that keyword, whether it be like the super machine gun, or the extra melee ability, or the objective capabilities, or
whatever it happens.
Whatever it happens.
I don't think you'll do that though, and the reason I don't think they'll do that is because they're throwing away a lot of opportunity for individual sales and units in one go, right? Because you can have Jin be her own unit, you can have Cassian be his own unit. They would likely be operatives.
There's 2 similar. Is what I'm getting at.
Not necessarily. You can have Cassian as your subterfuge sniper guy, and you can have Jin as your I lead from the front and do something with objectives, and then you can have
K2.
I don't think K2 will wind up. Whatever. I want my Viper droids. Damn it, that's what I want.
I'm pretty sure that's coming at some point.
Though I think it'll be really cool models too. Yeah, those Viper droids will be so sweet.
It begs to ask though, will they be units, small units, or will they be like get one and this thing has a big gun you can put on it?
I think if they're I would prefer them to be units. I think that would be
Like
cooler and more
units of 2 or
thematic.
3?
Yeah, units of max 3. I don't think you'd see more than 3.
And they wouldn't. Would they be on infantry bases?
Nope, I think they would be on small vehicle bases,
Like
the
the
same way as speeder bikes. Yeah,
because those things are pretty big.
they're pretty big. Yeah, they're not big like ATRT big.
No,
but they're a vehicle size.
I think they would be because they'd be on floating bases, so that essentially they'd be like the.
Oh yeah, they would be physically imposing, but I don't think they'd be on bigger than Like, and I know that this game's a different scale, and I know that Imperial Assault doesn't bill itself on being the end-all be-all of scale either.
Mm-hmm.
But like, if you look at a game like Imperial Assault, they have Viper droids,
Yeah.
and they are definitely big, but the game rules don't have to be like, oh well, these are quite a bit bigger, like.
No, they have big guns on them.
They can have big guns, yeah.
Like, they're pretty deadly.
Have you seen Solo yet?
No.
Oh, bud. You literally can't even have an opinion on this unit until you watch Solo. In fact, we have to stop this video so that we can go watch Solo right now.
I got a meeting at 2:30.
Well, work is ruining your life.
We could all say that.
Well,
but I think like some units I'd like to see, even not as an Imperial player, but I'd like to see across the table is probably Palpatine and the Royal Guard.
Yeah, I want that so badly.
Even if he's got some stupid like flamethrower lightning ability, like tons of red dice, just because it'd be fun. But then we'd need Yoda or Obi-Wan. Or
I don't think you would get Yoda because it's not very thematic. People are getting mad at me for saying that, but I think you could get Obi-Wan. I think you totally get Obi-Wan.
The way it feels currently is that this game takes place after Episode 4, before Episode 6-ish.
Well, I think that realistically what you're going to get is Solo to 6.
Onwards, yeah, so we could see Yoda. I think we're going to get Wookiees.
Maybe.
That's what I want.
The thing is, though, is that as it stands right now, and you're right, we could say, I'm not saying we're never going to get Yoda, but as it stands right now, it's staying within what is considered Star Wars canon, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they work pretty hand in hand with Disney and everything.
Canon.
Yeah. But at the same time, like we've seen X-Wing and Armada expand into some of the EU stuff.
Yeah, which
and
is awesome.
Anytime you see Yoda after Episode 3 actually doing something like action-packed and heroic, it's mainly on Dagobah, and it's mainly all EU. In fact, it is all EU.
Yeah, and it's all Force Power stuff. Like, technically, if you look at the movies, Palpatine only really does one thing, and that's electrocute Luke while cackling.
You're discounting Episode 3.
I mean, after Episode
No, that's not true. There is a book that I think is canon.
Movies.
There's a book that I think is canon. That's about Palpatine and Vader crash landing on a planet, and the two of them just like decimate the population until they can get off again.
Well, I'd like to see Obi-Wan. A lot of people are like, I know we have one friend who's like, oh, I can't wait for Ahsoka this, Ahsoka that. I'm like, I could see it.
I could see you getting Ahsoka just because of the Rebels show.
Yeah.
Kanan Jarrus.
That would be possible and neat. I think both sides have a lot of opportunity for getting more lightsaber wielding.
Yep.
As much as it is nice
Mara Jade.
I don't even tease that. Don't even tease that. As cool as it is to have Vader and Luke, the only lightsaber wielding characters so far, like it gives them a lot of gravitas on the table. I think it would be really interesting to see more variation in your Jedi Sith category, just from a gameplay perspective. Not like discounting like, oh, Ahsoka leading rebels against Vader. To some people be cool, some people like, I don't want that.
Yeah.
From a thematic perspective, it could be whatever. Like that's not the part I'm concerned with right now. From a gameplay perspective, it would be a missed opportunity if they did not release more Force characters.
Right. Yeah. No, I think
not now, but
I think
in the future.
Right. And they will. And I know that they will because there'll be new Force powers that then in like a year from now will revitalize people like Luke and Vader, especially Vader, because Luke has more opportunity to be more flexible earlier on because he has an equipment slot.
Yes.
Vader can only take Force powers.
Which the equipment slot keeps looking better and better and better as more stuff comes out. Like giving him environmental gear. And I know you're like, why? Because jump doesn't ignore difficult terrain. It ignores height. So if you're running him through the woods, he's still moving at speed 1.
Right.
The reason Luke is so awesome is he's a lightsaber on a rocket.
Yeah.
Is he's super quick. Vader is slow.
Yeah.
So that's Luke's thing, is he can move.
3 Force powers is really nice, though. It'll be nicer once we have additional, I'm interested to see like obvious force powers we might get are force lightning.
Yeah.
Like
Yoda's absorption thing. I don't know, something that lets you
that's
take incoming
that's the
fire
same
and
thing that
shoot
I
it
was
out.
thinking, except not even shooting it back. I was thinking the same thing, but my envisioning was Vader on Cloud City just being like, I just stop your blaster bolts with my hand. And that could be, something where it's like that, or Yoda's thing where you're not necessarily even throwing it back, but it's just more of like ignore the first 2 hits.
Yeah, give
and
yourself
you could have
cover.
that with a dodge token.
Tap, gain heavy cover.
Yeah, something like
Simple.
that, yeah.
Other things I could see is like a stun, something that freezes up the unit. Boba added new tokens that are basically stun tokens for infantry. We've seen
force freeze, yeah.
What are something that, I don't know, lets people dash or something?
Force heal.
Heal would be neat.
Vader. Force heal on Vader. No, it would be a light side only. Yeah.
Dark side only, lightning. Light side only, something defensive and healing that's non-hurting the enemy.
Yeah.
Oh, mind trick. Oh, heal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Force speed.
Speed would be cool.
That would be a generic power.
Gain an extra
either gain
an extra non-attack action,
or even just gain an extra move.
Yeah.
It could just be gain an extra
move. Do a speed 1 maneuver.
Or you only have 1 move, but it's a speed 3 move.
I would prefer gain a speed 1 maneuver.
Well, I know that's what you would prefer, Ryan. That might not be what you get.
No, because it works better for Vader.
Yeah.
It works good for Luke.
I don't know, speed 3 Vader.
Stop now. Force projection.
Force projection.
There are a lot of possibilities, and I can almost see them doing, because Force users are so far and few between. Is how they have different waves, and right now we're in wave 1. Wave 2, new Force user, start the release cycle. Wave 3, new Force user.
Yeah, because to be clear, I mean, again, it's not like people aren't wrong all the time, and I'm no exception. Because hey, maybe during the fall or the winter or something like that, we wind up getting an Obi-Wan release, because he is such a prominent character in the movies and part of the rebellion and all that kind of stuff. And they're gonna have that quote from Bail Organa about oh, my Jedi ally in hiding, he served me well in the Clone Wars. That's going to be the quote when that unit gets released. It's going to be, he served me well in the Clone Wars. But I think that I would not, I think that it would be interesting to say that, it probably won't be until a year after the game that we see more really powerful Force using characters, because they're going to come in 3 flavors. You're going to have your not super powerful but very supportive characters like Leia and Veers. You're going to have your super powerful combat monsters that are Jedi and Sith like Luke and Vader. But then you're going to have that kind of middle of the road thing that Han represents, and that we haven't really seen the Imperial equivalent to outside of Boba Fett, who's an operative.
Yeah, the thing is you have your melee beat sticks, which are Luke and Vader.
Yeah.
You have your ranged support, which are Leia and Veers, and then you have your ranged assassins, you could call them, like Han and Boba. Boba, ranged assassin, because he's got a bunch of abilities that actually make him an assassin, and Han, because he gets so many accurate piercing shots, and he can shoot a ton of them and shoot faster than everyone else.
And the reason I was so staunch against the idea of they're not going to release Boba Fett next as is because I had no concept of the idea of that they would say, oh, by the way, here's this whole other troop slot called operative.
They can still do stuff like that.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and that's another cool part of the game is we should not assume that we know all the cards in the deck to start predicting what hand we're going to be dealt. But I think that I'm much more comfortable from a nerd perspective of swallowing the idea that Boba Fett was the next release, because Boba Fett's cool. The mini looks cool. I love what he can do. I love what he represents. But it would have left a bad taste in my mouth if they had him labeled as an Imperial commander. He's not.
He's an operative. And that's the proper slot for it.
Absolutely.
And so who knows? Maybe we'll see a new surprise thing.
Well, I can't wait until they release the Scum faction so I can take Jabba the Hutt on the field as my commander.
Slugging around. No, Tiberzan.
Yeah.
And his crew of people. It's
or
consortium would be.
What's his nuts?
The Crimson Dawn.
The Crimson Dawn guys.
I wonder who the leader for that would be.
Well, it's clearly a guy whose name I can't remember.
Voss.
No,
I'm referencing the ending of Solo.
Devrin
Kane.
I can't remember. But yeah, anyway, so we've obviously gotten far afield from our original topics, but that happens with an organic conversation.
Yeah.
But that
It's because we're getting
all
releases.
our wish listing.
It's because we're getting releases that we didn't quite expect, like operatives and turrets, and it's like we kind of saw those, we didn't see them so soon. So Fantasy Flight is really throwing a bit of a curveball in the sense of what people's expectations are.
Yes,
and it's very refreshing, and it's nice because they're like, oh, okay, they're thinking of things, or they're coming up with neat rules that we didn't really think of.
Yeah.
They're trying to work towards backfilling the game with the upgrade.
And I still want an Imperial flyer of some kind.
X-Wing and a TIE. They would be big, though. Like, that's this big on the table. Yeah. That would be like a super heavy, and you get one slot for, like, in orbit.
It would be very big.
It would be too many points. I don't think you're going to see it. I've always imagined, like, Veers's bombardment is an ATST off screen, and our AT-AT off screen, and Leia's orbital bombardment is like a squadron of fighters coming by.
Yeah, it's like a Y-wing flyby or something.
So
because it doesn't actually say orbital bombardment, right? It says coordinated bombardment, so it's probably just a bunch of Y-wings flying by.
Well, those would be like severely anti-vehicle. I'm picturing X-wings because it's like it's just a strafe run, so it like hits two people. So and
then they're out of fuel.
and then the TIE fighters show up and they're like, we're busy fighting the TIE fighters now.
Yeah, exactly.
And then they get shot down.
Yeah, they're dead.
Because hope.
They're dead. Rebellions are built on hope.
We're hoping that
we hope we win.
That's white dice forever.
Yeah.
I hope. Part of me hopes that Rebels just only get white defense dice forever, because it makes it easy for me to be like, how many guys are going to survive? 0. If anyone survives, it's a win. Bonus.
Yeah, exactly.
And every now and then, it's just, I made all my white dice saves. The whole unit lives. I'm like, wow.
Yippee.
That's nice. They can shoot back.
Cool. So now, are we forgetting anything, or does that pretty much put us on a wrap for this month?
You're saying the second League kit, the narrative one. Do we want to touch on that?
Probably not, because I haven't jumped into it, and because we're starting that next month anyways, I think it's great fodder for our next episode. And that'll be in July, right? Or in June, yeah. No. So I guess that pretty much kind of puts a pin on everything that we discussed. We kind of got to the new stuff, what might be, what has been, what our experience playing has been so far. So yeah, I think we can pretty much call it there for today.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks again, guys, for watching. And as usual, if you do have anything that you'd like to see us address or talk about in next month's episode, please feel free to leave it in a comment on the video. And of course, I always appreciate a like and a subscribe and all that fun stuff that YouTubers always ask for. So we'll catch you next time, and keep gaming.